The Square and Compass podcast. We get to combine two of my favorite things. If anybody follows us on social media, you'll know two of my favorite things: spooky and supernatural things, and Freemasonry. In the opposite order, maybe, but nonetheless. So we are virtually, although I hope to get there in person, actually, in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, which is what, like an hour from Pittsburgh? Less than that?
I would say it's a little more than an hour,
Oh, I thought
even
it
though
was an hour. It's closest place I know is Pittsburgh to it. With two brothers, one of whom, brother Shawn Stiffler, is president of the Johnstown Masonic Temple Association. We also
yes.
have Brennan Stiffler, who is a brother who meets there, who's going to be going into the East, I understand, pretty soon. So, welcome both of you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having
Thanks for being here. Yeah.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to join. The reason, and I kind of talked about this with you offline. Um, the purpose of this podcast, amongst other things, really has been to explore the ways in which Freemasonry is relevant to the communities in which it's located. I've often argued that if you wanted to find success in a Masonic context, it's how relevant is Masonry to the communities in which its members are located and which it meets. And one of the major ways I think we find that relevance is through our buildings and the use of buildings for not just Masonic functions, but public functions as well. This is my personal opinion, I am a huge proponent of that because I think it increases the relevance, the stature, the positive notoriety of Freemasonry in a community when the buildings are in use for any number of events. And it just so happened that I discovered a supernatural expo event taking place in September in your temple. So I wanted to talk about that. But before I get into that, just briefly, and we'll start with Shawn as the president. If you could just tell us, what it is, your your position at the temple, what it is that you do, and even how you're connected to the public events or the events that maybe use your building.
Okay. As you said, I am the Temple Association president. So I oversee the board, but everything done through a board. It's all a group effort. So it's not like I have a overall say on anything. We have to vote on it and everything else. Um, we use our building. Believe it or not, we have a lot of weddings in our building. People love getting married. We have a beautiful temple. Uh, we have events. We have a reptile expo coming up. We have a craft show twice a year. We have a consignment sale now twice a year. Our building gets used for a lot of things with the public, and most of the time, myself, my son slash brother Brennan Stiffler, and other brothers, we go over and help our building manager Pete Boback, and we're there throughout the event. We assist people with whatever they need. We like to have people knowing that we're a part of their event as well. We're not just letting them use the space and they have no interaction with us. We get involved with them. If that's kind of like where you're going. um, for the cryptid event, we actually started that. So the supernatural slash cryptid event started out last year as a 1 day event brought on by just something that we wanted to do, see if the community liked it. We reached out and we brought in a lady that helps us. She books for us. And this year we moved it to a 2 day event, and we interact with the vendors, we interact with the guests. So we're constantly trying to keep a public appearance so people know as Masons, you know, we give them tours of the building while events are going on. They can ask us questions. Sometimes we have gotten members through this. I think if that's kind of what you're asking.
No, no, it is for sure, right? And like you said, right, people don't realize the membership that you can gain through events like this, and the goodwill you can foster in the community. What was the response like from the community when you, let's just focus more on the supernatural stuff. Now, when you started this Supernatural Expo, because if I recall correctly, this would be its second year. First year was last year. So what was the response like from the community and from the membership as well? And even at the start, when you first proposed this, what was the reaction like? And then it sounds like it must have been some pretty great response to go from a one-day event, one-day expo, to a two-day expo. So just what was that response like from the community and from the membership?
Well, the proposal came, we had an individual do a show for the temple, which inspired me to have a historical kind of haunted show done through another group of Grand Army of the Republics. They came over and had some history / haunted stories of the city. They did an event at our temple. I brought them in. With enough interest in that, the proposal was pretty simple. Hey, it seems like our community and the surrounding area enjoys the paranormal as much as we do, and Bigfoot and other things like that. And at the same time, we proposed doing the Cryptid Expo. Another one showed up in downtown for the Squonk, which is the Pennsylvania Cryptid. So it kind of like we merged, or I should say interacted with the founder of that one. And we realized, bouncing off of each other's events, that the area and the surrounding area is huge into this. And our turnout was great. The membership loved it. The first event was such a success that we had people asking if we were going to do it again, which obviously spawned us to do it again. And we made it 2 days so the vendors wouldn't have to set up and tear down, which a lot of people love. So we went from 30 vendors and, 4 speakers?
About 30 and 4.
30 vendors and 4 speakers to this year. We have about 50 vendors, 6 speakers, and we have special guests, Jeff and Willie from the Mountain Monsters, coming as well. So it's a huge turnout. We get a lot of foot traffic through all day long. People are excited.
What is it about, or what are some of the qualities or features of the Johnstown Masonic Temple that make it so attractive for this event in particular, this expo, but also for weddings, for just public events in general? Right? It sounds like, based on my research, you have a lot of them. What would you say are some of the features that make the Johnstown Temple so attractive for those type of events?
I'd say a lot of things that we're proud of is our Blue Lodge room. It's Egyptian themed. We've had the Pennsylvania Grand Lodge actually have a meeting there, and a lot of brothers that visit compare it to Grand Lodge's Egyptian room. I didn't get to see it in person yet, so I really can't say anything on that. But that's one thing we always get compliments on that room. Our medieval, Gothic, and our Yorkite side. We had the Grand Chapter here not that long ago. People are always complimenting the buildings are beautiful, and that's just from the Masonic end. I can't remember the square footage of our ballroom, but we have a ballroom that holds multiple different events there. And throughout history, we even had circuses in there, bringing elephants in, bands performing. It's a lot of space, and it's just that we are putting the effort in to make it look nice, welcoming everybody in and stuff like that.
I'm always very I talked about this to start, right, supportive or happy when I see Masonic buildings making that effort to reach out to the public or to host the public and to be part of the community. But I do think a lot of Masons who are members who meet at kind of these historic temples, these historic buildings, don't realize the amount of work that goes into it, into that aspect of it, the public side of it, not to mention the maintenance and all the rest of it. Like what is it like, either certainly from the temple board perspective and a president perspective, but just, Brennan, from your perspective as a member, like reaching out to the public, inviting them to your temple, just what is the type of work involved in that? Are you doing things through word of mouth, through social media, right? How do you advertise yourself? And then how do you make sure that you're providing the public that's using your spaces with everything they need to have a, successful event?
Let me see here. So a lot of it's through word of mouth. Social media are the big ones. We have a sign right outside of our building, so we put that up there so it's generally seen by the public. A lot of things we do is he mentioned our, how would you want to call him? I forgot how do you describe Pete again?
He's our building manager.
Yeah, our building manager is really active, really involved. He will work with people ahead of time, set up exactly how they want it. Just basically, he's on top of everything. He does a lot of the work for the actual events. We do a lot of like behind the scenes for some of them. We'll work the kitchen. Well, if it's like a gun show or something, we'll be there walking around. It all depends on what the event is. But the biggest thing for the events, I have to give it to Pete. He's on top of everything.
Every temple needs a Pete, needs somebody to do that stuff.
He's on top of it.
He's on top of it 24/7. And it also helps that we have a booking agent that volunteers her time to take the calls, because we can't be at the temple all day long every day. Pete's there, but he's also taking care of the building, so he can't answer the phone all day. So we have a booking agent who volunteers her time, schedules everything. And then, like he was saying, if it's a wedding, they'll come down, they'll tell everybody what they want, how it's laid out. And then, like our event, we know what we need to lay out. So we go over and assist and help out in setting up our own event with them. So
I do want to get back to the impetus for this whole podcast, the Supernatural Expo, but I did want to mention, I'm just noticing this now. Behind you guys, you've got some paintings. Looks like, are those local artists, or are those from the temple originally?
Okay, so all that stuff behind me, I'm a straight gamer, kind of nerdy. These are all game things. There's like Vader up there and then some video games down here. So they're kind of just, yeah, it's, if I'm not something at the temple, which I'm there getting close to almost as much as Pete, I'm usually gaming or something else. So these are all just video game things here.
Cool. I was just curious because trying to see what they were. Very cool. What's your favorite video game?
That's an easy one. It has to be that Dark Souls trilogy 1, 2, and 3. I played thousands of hours into that. And honestly, I could talk about that for a pretty long time.
See, I don't. I used to be, when I was younger, I was pretty big into video games. I remember I got the original Nintendo, not to date myself. Then I fell out of it for a while, but then I got back into it because I love scary things, and somebody told me about Dead Space, so I bought a used PS3.
There you go.
Got the Dead Space things and Dead Space games. Very fond of those, and then I got into Assassin's Creed because it had the Part 3 because it had the Masonic connection. So very cool.
I haven't played the Assassin's Creeds in a while. I think the last one that I played, I think it was Origins, the Egyptian themed one, and I didn't even get a chance to finish it yet.
I posted some. I think I posted some stuff on YouTube about some stuff on YouTube about Assassin's Creed 3 and its connections to Freemasonry, like the Green Dragon Tavern. And,
yeah, but I did enjoy 3.
So, anyways, back on topic. Exploring the mysteries, right? So the Cryptid and Supernatural Expo 2024 is taking place September 28th to the 29th, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the Johnstown Masonic Temple. I'm going to leave a link to the website in the description to this video. You've got a Bigfoot researcher, you've got paranormal researchers. Just overall, what can people, if they are interested in attending, what can people expect? What should people be looking for? What is this event going to be like for, like I said, for anybody interested?
So for that, we're going to have a variety of different vendors. It's going to be anything from crafts, tattoo artists, mediums, card readings. The speakers are going to talk about some paranormal, some cryptid adventure stuff that they've experienced. Overall, it's just going to be a fun time. Saturday, we're going to have Jeff and Willie come in for their pictures and everything. And every now and again, Bigfoot might show up. So if you want to see Bigfoot without going into the woods and get a clear picture, check that out also.
I know this is going to seem like an obvious question, or if anybody's been paying attention to this podcast so far, they should know the answer. But I'm going to ask it anyways because I do think that, and this isn't a reflection of you guys. This is a reflection of just one of the issues I think Freemasonry has in general, or the buildings have. This event is open to the public, right? You don't need to be a Mason to attend.
Nope, open to the public.
It's a
'cause
free event too.
So not only is it open to the public, but it's free. So you can attend and there's no price for admission. I do think, and some temples are good, some temples are not so good at it. Detroit's really, really good at this. Johnstown seems to be really good at this. There are some times where a Masonic temple will hold an event and people will assume you have to be a Mason to go there. So you don't need to be a Mason to go to this event, and you don't even need to pay anything to go. 2 reasons to attend, amongst other things. What's it been like moving it from just a single day to 2 days? Have you brought in more guest speakers than last year? More crafts and more artists? What's that process been like? And when you started planning it, did you know you were going to go to 2 days, or did you just have so much interest that you decided as you're planning it to move to 2 days?
Well, when we started off, we actually did it in a rush. I think we pulled it off in
I think less than 6 months.
It was under 6 months the first time we threw it together. Thank God for our help, Leah, who helped guide us. The excitement from the first time was so overwhelming. We gave out a survey. We wanted to get people's opinions that were there. They enjoyed it so much. They wanted to come. They said, we'll come back. We enjoyed the pleasantness of the people, the beautiful space, the cleanliness of the temple. They even said a lot of other places that they were at, we actually, were a lot, I would say, more professional, we get along with everybody. So we were a lot friendlier with them. So the second round, it wasn't really hard. People just started asking us to join, and it got bigger. So on its own, and different things we got going on. One thing we didn't mention is upcoming. We have an overnight investigation of the building. A lot of the brothers have had experiences. Most recently, Brennan and I were over there one evening, and I don't want to give away a lot of stuff because they're going to do the investigation soon, but we had a door slam on us and pacing steps back and forth in the room behind us while we were standing at the altar in our one room. So
I did actually, so in my home Masonic temple, the Windsor Masonic Temple, I did 2 with the same group, Canadian Paranormal Trackers, but 2 overnight investigations,
Nice.
which were a lot of fun. So are you guys going to be there with the investigators overnight, or?
Yes.
Well,
this will be our first investigation. So I don't know if they're going to let us be a part of it or how this is going to work, but we're excited to have it. So
it's this Saturday, so coming up.
Suggest a lot of coffee, a lot of snacks. It was like I remember mine. They were a lot of fun. They were like sleepovers, right? We kind of set up on the top floor, which is where our refreshment area is, and we just put out a bunch of snacks and made a bunch of coffee, and then we'd go investigate for like an hour, one room, go back up for great coffee, then go to the second room, then go, so we kind of did it that way, where we go, but after we kind of divided the building up into different sections, investigate each section for an hour with the break in between. So actually we did a podcast with the guy who did the investigation. I'll leave that link somewhere up top. I'll leave that link there. But no, that's really, really cool. And then, I mean, if you offer public tours of your building, you can always try to offer ghost tours sometimes, right? That could be a really fun thing to do as well.
That's something we were actually thinking about, depending on how this goes.
Does Johnstown have like a public ghost tours that you could latch onto?
Public ghost tours of the city. We've had that through our Grand Army of the Republic lodge that's downtown. They do the ghost stories because Johnstown was a flood. Everybody seems to be familiar with the 3 floods of Johnstown. There's a lot of ghost stories tied with that. And then there was a mine accident in our hillside over there. So they give a tour of all the different areas downtown around us and everywhere else where different hauntings happen. And we could tie into them. That's something we've thought about. So
Yeah, because I mean, I'm just thinking we never got it done, which I'm hoping we can change one day. But tying in, because we have ghost tours in Windsor, primarily down in the Sandwich area, but trying to tie those in with the Windsor Masonic Temple. But that is going to be really cool. Are you going to be filming anything for YouTube from your overnight investigation, or will the investigators be filming anything? Or
as far as I know, there will be filming from the investigation team, and they're going to let, as far as I know, the individual that helps us set up things, she's going to be down there with a partner of hers that's going to be filming too, I believe. So there's supposed to be video that will go up. That's why we're trying to have it done before the event coming up, so we can share it on the Facebook page, the website, let people know, hey, there's some history, because on our website we have the history of the area, the history of the temple, and then we would like to add some of the ghost stories, if you will, and footage. So
it's a really good website, by the way. I'll be leaving it, like I said, in the description to this video. Will it just be the two of you as Masons plus the investigation team, or will there be other Masons there as well?
Yeah,
There'd be Pete.
Yeah, our building manager, Pete Boback, Brennan, and myself are going to be the only three going in with the group. And like I said, the lady that helps us set it up and her partner. So it's a grand total of us 5 and whoever they bring on their team. So,
well, may I, like I said, I will suggest coffee. I will suggest snacks. And yeah, I had a lot of fun doing those. At least you're smart. You're doing it on a Saturday, right? You said?
Yes. Saturday into Sunday.
Mine was it was overnight Thursday to Friday, and I still had to work on Friday. So we started at 9 o'clock on Thursday, I think it was, or 10 o'clock on a Thursday, and then went until sunrise the next day. So 7 a.m. I think is when we finished. And then I went home and showered, and then I went to work. So I was pooped.
Jeez.
But that was the first time. The second time, I think we were smarter and actually did it on a weekend, if I recall correctly. Because, like I said, we did the two. But that is really, really cool. Is it like? Do you think that? Because I've heard and in this podcast, a lot of Masonic temples have ghost stories. A lot have. Some will try to leverage those ghost stories into tours and public events. Some just have them and the members know about them. It seems like there's a connection, or Masonic temples are natural magnets for kind of supernatural stories and spooky stories. Do you think it's just connected to the age of the buildings, or the number of people that come through them, or even the architecture, right? Most have kind of a neoclassical style, but some have a Gothic style to them. Does it surprise you at all, or do you think it makes sense that so many Masonic temples would have ghost stories and supernatural stories attached to them?
I mean, it doesn't really surprise me at all. I think it's because how many members are there, how much time's put in. There's a lot of people that have connections to it that many aren't really ready to let go for, so they still want to float around and everything. And ours has been up, was it almost 100 years at this point? I think the cornerstone
1931 was the cornerstone.
So we're nearing 100 years of that alone. So it's been a lot of people's the age and just all the history behind it, at least for us.
I think that sounds about right to me. I was reviewing the history of your temple, right? And it was interesting how, and again, this isn't that surprising when you consider, right? I know that it was built in 1931, but the funding was gathered earlier than that in the 1920s. And most Masonic buildings that are kind of quote unquote grand Masonic buildings, I would include mine in there: Windsor, Johnstown, Detroit, Chicago, Toronto. They all kind of date to the 1920s because of that big boom period in Freemasonry, Bay City. So I think that's really cool as well, and a really interesting connection, between our building, your building. Do you, in terms of like, what type of response have you been getting from the community as we get closer and closer to September 28th? based on, it looks like from, again, the website, you've got a lot of great responses from the vendors, from the presenters, from the guest speakers. What are you hearing from the community? Is there a lot of excitement building? Have you been advertising it, again, outside of this podcast, word of mouth, social media? What's that been like, and what's the response been? Seems like there's a lot of excitement. I mean, I discovered it kind of randomly, which tells me that people are talking about it, if nothing else.
You want to take it?
So we have a public Facebook group, which is slowly going up in numbers also. It's been going through word of mouth community. It's been going as far as Gettysburg, I've heard, different states. The public, the one event that's coming up, I feel like the Squonk one that we're having with, that we interact with the head of that. There's a lot of that for that first, since it's coming up. But I feel like once that passes, a lot of it starts blowing up, focusing on, hey, when's the next big event? And that happens to be us.
Well, I mean, I 100% plan to be there, because I think it's going to be super cool, and you guys deserve a lot of credit for the work putting into it. One thing that I hope that my podcast kind of does, and I'm curious to get your take on it, right, is I do think a lot of Masons, and this can be at the Grand Lodge level as well, tend to have like a narrow view of what Freemasonry is. So we all know the definition, or that we're given, but then it's this idea of like, how do I put this? You open the lodge, you do your ritual, you close the lodge, and that's Freemasonry. And some would say, well, also a social event that the lodge puts on outside of a meeting would be Freemasonry, right? But there's so much more that goes into Freemasonry than just those two things. And that includes all the financial stuff that, as a temple board president, you have to deal with, right? The paying the bills, making sure the building is up to code, making sure that it's compliance with all the things it needs to be in compliance with, making sure the bills get paid on time. Then there's the public facing side of the building, and making, events like this, right? To me, events like the Supernatural Expo, right, are as much a part of Freemasonry as a business meeting or a degree or ritual. And I think certainly, Shawn, right, in your position as temple president, you probably see that more than anybody, right? Like, being a Freemason and Freemasonry encompasses a lot more than what happens in a business meeting or a degree, right? And all the extra work that goes into it. So particularly from a Masonic perspective, what is the response like from members in terms of, do you expect to see a lot of your Masons at the Supernatural Expo? It sounds like, you mentioned your custodian, building manager, is a Mason himself. So just what's that like, that relationship between your members and these events and the building?
Well, we get, I would say, I don't know how to put this. Who shows up member wise? We get usually the same members that show up for one thing will show up for a lot of things. We have a lot of members in our lodge, but a lot of them are older. And we're talking, they've been members for 50 years. So we don't get a lot of them to do much because they can't get around much anymore. But a lot of the newer, younger members interact more. They come around. So we get a good presence of the newer members. Our building managers at every event. His family comes to every event. Our family goes to every event. It's Masonry, at least for me, and I know for my son, it's not just like you said, we open, close, and that's the end of the meeting. It's kind of like in our lives all the time because we interact with the building all the time. So a lot of other members, as they interact as much as they can. So I really don't know how to answer that one.
It really depends. That's all I can say. Some are all gun ho for it. Others, unfortunately, will just see it as business meetings or just as rituals, and they don't look at every aspect of it. As senior warden right now, I get a look at like the financials, a lot of behind the scenes also for the building. And that also goes for when I'm in chapter, council, commandery, and working my way through Scottish Rite. They don't see every aspect of it. But in everybody, you can always tell who's willing to show up. And if they can, who's willing to help in any way they can. I'm 26 myself. There's a lot of younger guys around my age that are all gun-ho for it. They're going to be like, yeah, let's do this. And then sometimes the older members, if they can't help, they'll bring their families or something like that. So it's a toss-up in terms of interaction with the events. But I hate to say that, we kind of can say that for like every organization.
No, I think it's every organization for sure, right? But I like the way you put it, right? What's behind it is, I think a lot of Masons don't realize how much work is involved in maintaining a building, maintaining a lodge, all of that type of stuff, right? And I know exactly what Brother Shawn was talking about, right? It's, especially when you're dealing with a building, it can, Freemasonry can very much become your entire life. And so it's nice to, but it's, we need the guys doing stuff like that as well, right? Because you're kind of the heartbeat of Freemasonry, right? It's, if guys want to come out to a meeting, they got to have somewhere to meet, and that place has got to be maintained, and that place has got to be up to standards and paid for. And there's a lot more that goes into it. I've talked about before. Even little things people don't think about. We once in our washrooms, we ran out of toilet paper, and because of, we had one person who'd kind of been running the building, or that's, all the logistical stuff of it, no one knew where the toilet paper was, right? Like, it's amazing of the things that go into it that people don't think of. So I think that's something I always try to bring up, right, in this stuff.
Well, just mentioning stuff like that, we are kind of like in a similar situation. Our building manager knows where everything is. He's been there doing it for so long. So he's trying to make sure that he's passing on this knowledge. So just like you said, if we ran out of toilet paper, at least several of us know where it's at now. He's trying to pass that knowledge on, because if one person carrying the building, and then he's even thinking to himself, someday I might step down and retire. Who's going to take over? And that's kind of a lot of knowledge to lose. So we have to hurry up and start gaining it.
A lot of buildings are in the same situation. And, I always think the most important thing you can do for a building or for any organization, is to make yourself unnecessary, right? That should be your ultimate goal, right? Is making yourself unnecessary by making sure other people know and letting them take the reins and all that type of stuff, right? That's really important. Going back to Supernatural Expo, though, I do want to ask both of you, what would you say is the topic or the presenter you're most looking forward to? I'll just speak now for myself. I'm going to go with Daniel Benoit, because the Bigfoot researcher, that seems kind of cool to me. What about you guys? What are you most looking forward to?
I can't really say. I mean, I lean more towards the supernatural myself. I've had plenty of experiences both inside and out lodge versus seeing Bigfoot and stuff like that. So the paranormal side is what I'm looking more forward to, but I'm just excited for everything there.
I'm about the same way. I'm more into paranormal, only because I grew up with a lot of experiences myself. But I do like, Bigfoot. I watch that stuff on TV all the time, trying to, because it's not something that, can you really prove? Can you not prove? The mystery's there. So it keeps me hooked all the time. So.
Does your love of the supernatural, especially Brennan, you mentioned it, does that extend to scary movies? Do you love those as well? Just because I'm a huge horror movie fan, so I got to ask.
See, I'm not really a big fan of the horror movies. I will not lie. I jump at jump scares. I am not the biggest fan of them. This one got plenty of laughs out of it. How many times?
As every dad should do.
I like more of the real stuff, like the Warren's history. He got me a book. The Demonologist was about a bunch of their stuff. Can't really think of anyone else off the top of it, but I like more of that true stuff versus just the horror film, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think I've always gravitated more towards like the Nightmares on Elm Street and the Friday the 13th and all those, but um, it's all spooky stuff, which is what's important. And yeah, and as I said before, my plan is to be there because I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And like you said, it's free admission,
Yeah,
so
we look forward
that
to seeing.
There's free
I mean, yeah,
admission.
maybe I'll take some video that I can post up on YouTube. But in terms of, I do want to end with this because this is a Masonic podcast, obviously. And how is it going in terms of Freemasonry in Johnstown? Because I know very little about it. Do you guys meet over the summer, or do your lodges tend to go dark?
So in Pennsylvania, it will depend on the lodge. Some of them are still conferring degrees over the months of July and August. Johnstown ourselves, we usually go dark those 2 months. Of course, we still have the background things, the building still's going. But in terms of ritual and state meetings, we're usually closed. Now, it's kind of, and you can say it's about Freemasonry ever. It's like on a decline, and then it's up, and then it's on the decline, then it's up. Johnstown alone brought in a bunch of younger guys, but then unfortunately, as the median age still goes up, those members are dying. So we're trying to find that happy medium to at least stay the same, maybe go up, but each lodge is going through a similar thing. It's just an aging population. We really got to expose it to the younger guys, people my age, people in their teens, 18, 19, early 20s, because we don't know what it really is still. I know I got into it through research and everything. My dad was already into it how long ago, so we decided to go through. But this day and age, it's all about the cell phones and social media. What the heck's Freemasonry? Oh, is it a fraternity? I hate to say it, but it goes back to that. Is it a cult mindset? So we really got to focus on educating also, but it just memberships everywhere up and down.
Johnstown went from thousands of members when we had steel mills and coal mines to a few hundred, but that's happened a lot everywhere. Jobs and all that left, and the people went with them. So
It has happened everywhere. Yeah, you're not alone in that. I am starting to get more of I don't know if optimism is the right word because I don't think I'm optimistic by nature, but I think we're doing a better job than we think in a lot of cases, right? Or things are going better than we think they are in a lot of cases. I mean, membership, it's going to go up, it's going to go down, but Freemasonry is one of those organizations that, boy, can it take a good ass kicking and keep going. I think if you look at the history of it, from depending when you want to define the start of it as, 1717 is kind of the easy date, easy year to go. I know some would go back to the 16th century, but it's just starting at 1717. I mean, the anti-Masonic sentiment in Britain, the Germany in World War II, Nazi Germany, what Masonry went through there, Satanic Panic, which Freemasonry started to find itself wrapped up in a little bit in the 80s in some places. And, despite all of that, it's managed to somehow, despite in some cases Mason's best efforts, make it through the other side. Thanks to, for every bad decision Masonry tends to make, we tend to make two good ones. So I don't know. It seems like even though we can be our own worst enemy a lot of the times, and even though there's been a lot of challenges, you gotta be impressed with the resiliency of the organization. And like I said, if it can survive some of the things it survived in the past, it can probably survive reductions in membership and still make it through. That's my theory, anyways.
I agree.
Yeah, we're definitely the hardest ones on ourselves. Just thinking about it now, I just finished reading a book on the anti-Masonic party in America. If we can survive that, we're going to survive a good bit of stuff. It's just trying to look long-term and not trying to panic at the declining numbers. It's just the age, but it's not, the fraternity's not dying.
No, I don't think. I mean, and I think again, this is why I wanted to talk to you guys, and a lot of my efforts. I say I kind of took a step back because I was a little bit burnt out, but I plan to get back into these efforts in the fall. Like the emphasis, in my opinion, it shouldn't be about membership per se. It should be about relevance, which is why I really admire what Johnstown and what Shawn is doing as the temple president. Right, your building is relevant to the community. Right, people care about it and people want it to be there. And whether you have thousands of members or hundreds of members, the first, from just a dollar and financial sense, you're able to deal with those declining revenues of members through public events, but also it keeps the building relevant. The litmus test that I would give to any Masonic building or Masonic lodge, if they wanted to determine whether or not they're successful or not, I would say is, if I snapped my fingers and your Masonic building disappeared, would anybody care? Right?
Yes.
Or how many people would care?
Easily it would care. We're in the process, led by him, for a historical designation and stuff like that also. So we're really trying, well, mostly him and the board is really trying to make an effort to keep us around and keep us relevant. Masonry is definitely a multi-pronged approach: membership, retention, engagement, community engagement, financials. All depends on how you look at it. And with all of that going in mind, and being the wedding and event center that we are, people would definitely miss us. There's been proms here, weddings here, and everything else. People would definitely, hey, where'd the building go?
Right. And I think that to me indicates a successful, that means that in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, Freemasonry is a success, right? Because I don't know how else you define it, because you can have thousands of members, but if none of those members are showing up, or if nobody in the community knows about it, like, who really cares? What are you actually accomplishing, right? I think it's not about names on a piece of paper. It's about, does the building matter to the people? Does the building matter to the membership? And does masonry matter, right? And you could say the same thing about a lodge. If I snapped my fingers and the lodge went away, how many people would notice, right? In terms of your membership. If you're only getting 6 people out per meeting and you have 500 members, it's probably not that relevant to them, right? So that, I think, is always the question, right? Relevance. And hearing with historical designation is great. And I think that, like I said, the fact that I stumbled upon this convention and learned about its Masonic connection, it tells me that, if nothing else, you guys are making Freemasonry a success in Johnstown. So congratulations for that, and thank you for that.
Thanks.
And best of luck with your historical designation. Let me know how that goes. My building is historically designated. It's a super interesting thing. I'd have to know more about how it works in Pennsylvania, because it really is an interesting kind of double-edged sword, right? On the one hand, in historical designation, it provides opportunities for funding. It ensures that the building stays safe. It also does create an extra layer of work if you want to make any type of modifications to the building, especially to the facade and what people can see. But I would say overall, you're always, any historical building, it's better off getting a designation than not, in my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Considering our building's almost 100 years old, and other than a few upgrades of windows and doors, and obviously plumbing, it's originally almost all intact. So even our person that went in to set up our historical designation said he's surprised how well it's endured, almost original. So,
I thought you were going to say even our person was here in 1931. I was like, that's an old fella. So good job on that.
Yeah, I wish. Well, and then we're getting our historical designation, but also, just to throw that out there, the lodge that Brennan and I belong to turns 150 years old next year.
I mean, first, congratulations on that. I mean, I can only speak to the Canadian side of it, Ontario specifically. But there are a lot of grants available for historical buildings, for renovations, for replacing windows. Maybe I'll send you the link because I wrote about it a little bit on, and maybe give you guys some ideas. But it sounds like you guys are doing a great job. I don't think you need any ideas from me.
We'll take them.
The more, the better.
We take everybody's input because that little kernel can be hidden anywhere of gold.
I'll send you that for sure. And in the meantime, I do want to thank you guys again, both for being here and for all of the work that you guys are doing. Like I said, to not just make it relevant, but to keep Freemasonry relevant in your community. So well done to that. And just want everybody watching this, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you guys both for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
And hopefully see you in September.
And definitely we'll have to show you the building, completely built from the ground up for its fraternity.
Yes, I will be there for sure. And I look forward to touring it. Hopefully I get to meet you guys as long as nothing happens to you during your paranormal investigation.